The Trump administration has launched what it calls an economic D-Day against Iran, imposing new sanctions across major parts of its economy as the US war in the country approaches 6 months. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced the measures alongside the continuing naval blockade of Iranian ports. He also called on governments around the world to cut their economic ties with Tehran.
Today, at President Trump's direction, the United States Treasury has begun Operation Economic Outcast, an unprecedented campaign against the Islamic Republic of Iran and its enablers. In the Second World War, D-Day marked the historic beginning of a campaign with our allies to target and drive the enemy from its positions, including those in third countries. Today, in that same spirit, we are launching an economic onslaught against Iran's financial connections around the globe. Our objective is to sever every economic lifeline that sustains this tyrannical regime until Tehran stands alone. Iran's fanatics devote themselves to death to America and seek nuclear weapons to do just that. They have murdered and maimed more of our citizens and service members than any other terrorist regime on earth. And they have been at war against America, their neighbors in the Gulf, and much of the world for 47 years. President Trump has taken action that his predecessors have long deferred. And under his leadership, America is no longer managing the Iranian threat. We are ending it.
The latest sanctions target Iran's oil and gas industry, shipping, aviation, technology, gold, and digital assets. They also apply to 60 individuals and vessels, including ships linked to China, Hong Kong, and Singapore. The broader aim is to deprive Tehran of its main source of revenue and increase pressure on the foreign companies and governments that still trade with it.
Every country has a defined timeline to shut down activities we have identified. If they do not take action, we will do so unilaterally through Treasury authorities. For example, every branch of Bank Melay must be shuttered and dark. And let me be clear, any entity that facilitates money laundering on behalf of Iran will be removed from the US dollar system. The clock just started ticking. The new sectoral sanctions determinations issued today target 5 of Iran's most vital lifelines that it exploits in other countries: digital assets, technology, gold, aviation, and shipping. These measures broaden secondary sanctions risk for anyone foolish enough to continue conducting business with this regime, and will accelerate the speed with which we pursue them.
That pressure will come through secondary sanctions, which allow Washington to penalize non-US entities for doing business with Iran. But analysts say many of the latest measures are extensions of restrictions already in place. Their immediate impact may depend on whether Iran's remaining trade partners are willing to risk US penalties. Washington says Iran has used cryptocurrency to evade sanctions and finance transactions involving the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps.
Today, we are launching Operation Economic Outcast to foreclose every other option available to the Iranian regime. Treasury has mapped every node, every facilitator, and every network that Iran has used to smuggle oil and evade sanctions. Beginning today, the actions of Treasury and other agencies will tighten the noose and block every potential source of revenue that funds the IRGC and the evil Iranian regime. We are enforcing a zero leakage approach. There will be no minimal breathing space for the regime to rebuild its capacity to inflict terror against America and the world.
It also accuses Tehran of using gold to support the rial, state-linked ships to transport oil and weapons components, and civilian airlines to move military personnel and resources to allied groups in the region. The technology restrictions are introduced to block materials that Washington says could support Iran's weapons programs. The administration has also suspended several humanitarian and civilian exemptions, including those covering academic exchanges, personal money transfers, and some sporting activities. Organizations using those exemptions have until September 8th to wind down their work. Analysts warn that these measures could have a more direct impact on ordinary Iranians, including students and families receiving money from abroad. Iran has faced US sanctions since the 1979 embassy hostage crisis. Some restrictions were eased after the 2015 nuclear agreement, but Donald Trump withdrew the United States from that deal in 2018 and restored the penalties.
In just a short period of time, the world's leading state sponsor of terror will be on the cusp of acquiring the world's most dangerous weapons. Therefore, I am announcing today that the United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal. In a few moments, I will sign a presidential memorandum to begin reinstating U.S. nuclear sanctions on the Iranian regime.
Since returning to office, Trump has repeatedly expanded sanctions on Iran's petroleum exports, shipping networks, and cryptocurrency transactions.
Starting tomorrow, the United States will implement reciprocal tariffs on other nations. It's been a long time since we even thought of that. We used to think about it a lot. We didn't think about it for many decades, and you see what's happened. For nations that treat us badly, we will calculate the combined rate of all their tariffs, non-monetary barriers, and other forms of cheating. And because we are being very kind, we're kind people, very kind. You're not so kind when you got ripped off with your salaries. My auto worker friends and my Teamster friends and all of the unions that typically voted Democrat, they're not voting Democrat anymore because worker, whether union or non-worker, they're for the Republicans now. That's what happened.
But the economic consequences are also reaching consumers outside Iran. China buys roughly 90% of Iranian crude exports. Several Asian economies also depend heavily on oil transported through the Strait of Hormuz, which carried about 1/5 of the world's oil before Iran severely restricted passage during the war. The resulting pressure on global supplies has pushed up transport, food, and fuel costs. In the United States, the average price of petrol has risen from $2.98 a gallon when the war began on February 28th to $4.09. Analysts warn that prices could climb further if Iran retaliates against Gulf shipping or if insurers and shipping companies begin avoiding the region. That could raise the cost of petrol, diesel, air travel, and freight, adding to inflation inside the United States. The political risk for Trump is growing as November's midterm elections approach. Recent polls suggest only about 1/3 of Americans support the war, while approval of Trump's handling of both Iran and the economy remains below 35%. Markets have also reacted. Gold rose to its highest level since mid-May as investors sought safer assets. Brent crude, however, fell by more than 2% after 2 weeks of gains, while major US stock indices delivered mixed results. The new sanctions may intensify the pressure on Iran, but their wider impact on Iranian civilians, global energy supplies, and American consumers could also increase the economic and political cost of the war for Washington.